Okay, thank you. I think we're ready. Holli, Urenna, thank you for joining us this morning, actually. So we're going to talk about changing our money mindset in 2020. So, Holli, we've met a few months ago, actually. We recorded your podcast. I can send it after the session also. And we had a really good conversation about money, of course, and body image. So you're a psychotherapist, you're a body image specialist, you also have young kids, so you're right in this, you work with lots of clients. So I think we're going to talk about our relationship with money and how we can improve it, but I'll let you, tell a little bit more about yourself. And Urenna, you're a startup founder of an app called Kashmir that helps women buy actually luxury goods, or save and buy luxury goods without feeling guilty, which is a really good thing. And the really interesting thing is you worked as a financial advisor before, so you're going to tell us a little bit about your experience and why this is different and when you think we actually need maybe something different from financial advice. So maybe in your own words, can you tell me a little bit why do you think you're here today? Maybe Holli, do you want to start?
Sure. Firstly, thank you for asking me, Emilie. We had a great conversation, and I think it was different, for sure different, because what we were doing was connecting both of our works that we do and coming together and finding those connections. So I'm a psychotherapist, and what that means is I see clients individually or with families. I do talks in schools and talks in companies as well, all around who we are physically, so how we feel about our physical selves and how that impacts us emotionally. So appearances, how we present ourselves, and who we really are on the inside. And there was, you had to think about it a little bit and make the connection, but there's a lot of connection between how we feel about ourselves physically and how we feel about ourselves in terms of our relationship with money. And you dig a little bit, not necessarily obvious right away, but when you start to talk about it, you see that there's a lot of connection between ourselves and our self-worth and how that comes together, which we'll talk about more later.
Thank you. And you, Urenna?
So I guess mine is quite interesting because I guess my background is in personal finance. I worked as a financial advisor at a wealth management firm for about 4 years. And throughout that whole period, I learned a lot about, obviously my clients were very wealthy people, high net worth, not the everyday person. But I think I definitely learned a lot in terms of really understanding like attitudes towards money and really thinking, even though yes, their bank balance was significantly more than mine, but the themes were still relatively similar. So it definitely helped me think a lot about like money, investments, and also looking at my friends and sort of like trying to get my female friends particularly to really understand the importance of money. Because even though, yes, I had clients, but again, there was still majority men. Like it was over 90% of my clients were male, and which was quite interesting and not surprising, but it started to make me think about like what can we do to help women really understand money better and really engage in understanding, like improving their financial literacy.
Okay, cool. So today we'll cover like 3 topics. I think the first one is money personality, so trying to understand who we are with money and why this is important. Then we'll talk about how you respectively work with your community, with your clients to help people like find better habits or fight like bad habits around money. And I think the last part is around more like planning, how can planning your finances in advance help, and also how can we talk more about money in a more like positive way. So maybe on the first part, the money personality, Holli, what is for you like a money personality or money mindset, and what are the steps we can take to understand our own story with money?
So I guess money mindset really is, if we define it, it's how we think about money, how we ourselves, what are our money stories that we have grown up with, that we've been either told initially from our families, and then on a wider level societal messages around money, what money means to you. And that's sort of how I think about it. And when I talk to people, either clients or friends, everybody seems to have a different money story, but on some level we all share these ideas and these messages that have come to us, and in a sense of a taboo around it, what we're not allowed to talk about with money? What has to stay quiet? Why is there, some things that make us feel uncomfortable about mindset? And to be able to really find some awareness around that, ask yourself the questions, because in a topic such as money, where there is a lot of taboo, often what we want to do is not really think about it. We just sort of go along and we just behave like we always do. But if we can take a few moments to actually think, hang on a second, why do I feel this way if I'm purchasing something? Or what's making me feel uncomfortable about my bank statement today? And we can really get to know our own money mindset better. And when we do that, we feel such a sense of control and a sense of mastery over an area that maybe we don't feel so great about.
Yeah, and Urenna, so in your work as a financial advisor, so maybe there's some financial advisors actually with us today, but a lot of financial advisors I met actually building a Vestpod, writing my book, very quickly you go into like building your plan. So they ask you like thousands of questions about your own finances, about your partner, if you're with someone, and that's extremely stressful. And I don't think a lot of them do the work around, understanding who you are with money and your relationship, and that's a very stressful meeting. So was it something you were doing with clients, or is it something that you think was missing? And so what was your general role as an advisor?
Yeah, we definitely really got into like the personal relationships with money and just the entire person's life in general. So in terms of my role, so I did a variety of things. So a lot of it was focusing on, so when we meet a client for the first time, when they do sign up as a client, we really understand, what their long-term goals are, like their family, if they have, if it's a man, then if he has a wife or a partner, does he have children, does he plan to have children in the future, any other family commitments, school fees, like loads of things. We really, really go in depth into it, and then so we understand their personal profile. Then we also start to understand their risk profile also. So are they like an adventurous person in terms of like, are they willing to take risks, or are they more risk averse? Because that will determine what sort of funds that we invest their money into. We look at things like their age. So if they're like maybe early 40s, then we know that they've got about maybe 20 more years before they want to retire. Whereas if they're hit 60s or 70s, then they're probably going to need their money relatively soon. So we think about things like that. So if they're much older, then we'd invest their stuff in much safer investments. Although we did have situations where we had very old clients, but they wanted like their stuff invested in adventurous things. But that was because they didn't plan to touch it at all. They wanted to leave it as inheritance for the future. So it really, really varied. And no two clients had the same like type of portfolio, because everyone has different experiences. And the thing that the firm I worked for, what they're really good at was really understanding you as a person and tailoring all your investments towards making sure that you achieve the goals that you want to. So we did stuff on like, the usual like stocks and shares, ISAs, making sure that's all covered, general investments, estate planning, insurance, pensions, divorce, there were loads of things. And even like with the divorce stuff, which was actually quite interesting, because we had situations where a client, let's say a man and a woman, they've been clients for 20, 25 years. And then it's usually the man that we engage with the most. And then when it's time for divorce and the woman gets a payout, it's like starting all over from scratch, because she never really got involved in the investment. So she's like, oh, I've got like £5 million now. I don't really know what to do with it. So I was like, you've been a client for 20 years? It's quite interesting. And we did have a few situations like that. So, but yeah, it was a really interesting role, and definitely learned a lot from that.
And did you see any difference? So you had mostly, like, I guess, you said like 90% male clients, and now your community is for women, a bit like Vestpod.
Yeah.
So what are for you the main differences, and maybe Holli, that's also for you, like between men and women and our relationship with money?
Yeah, the most obvious one is that, men take more risks than women. Even if when I look at my male friends and my female friends, I'm part of couple of WhatsApp groups that we talk about money with my peers. And I noticed that the men were always the ones who were more vocal compared to the women. The men were always, every time a new savings app comes out or any investing app, they're first to download it. So I have friends who have at least 20 saving and investing apps on their phone. I'm like, how are you managing all of this stuff? It doesn't make sense. But whereas the women tend tended to want to think about it first. I remember when Moneybox first came out, and I tried to get some of my friends to start investing using Moneybox, since it's really easy. Like, you don't need to know anything about finance to use Moneybox. And even then was still like a struggle, because they were like, oh, like, I don't really want to lose any money. And I had a friend put like £20 in, and then maybe 2 days later it went down to like 19.98, and she was freaking out. So
Moneybox is like an auto saving app. So
Yeah.
basically, if you buy something like I don't know, a coffee, £2.50, the 50 extra p will go like in an account, either a saving account or an investment account, ISA, pension, and then it's invested for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the biggest difference I noticed. Another difference I noticed was that when it comes to the way women think about money, like, we're more goals oriented compared to men. So men just like to, in general, and obviously it's a massive generalization, but in general they tend to save and invest just because. Whereas women tend to think about why am I saving this money? Where am I investing it? Where is it going to? What's the purpose? Whereas a lot of men don't really think like that. So because there's that purpose attached to it, that's why we tend to think even more about why we're doing it, and then it takes us longer to do it. And so we then miss out on opportunities sometimes because of that.
And Holly, have you seen? Who are your clients? Mostly male, female?
Interesting. Initially, they were predominantly women, and young mothers as well. But it keeps shifting, and it says a lot about society and how we're managing, just talking about mental health right now. So I would say I have at least 50% male right now. And when we talk about finances, I would agree with all of that. There's an attitude that women have towards money, which, and again, we have to look at generational as well. So an older generation is going to have a different take on money and a different take on their comfort level with money. And often there's a denial around money and dealing with money. And I just don't want to, I'm not good at it. And again, these old messages, I'm not good at it. You know, my mom never did it, my auntie never did it, my father did it, my uncle did it, I don't want to know. And as a result of that, that creates a barrier between how you manage it, and that you give up so much of your own control to somebody else to manage that. It doesn't leave us feeling really at ease or comfortable around all these things. So I'm very much wanting to disband that and empower women and men to feel more comfortable with money. And I think, it starts young.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, so there's a big, sort of secrecy around money. I think our generation, we're a bit better at opening up and talking about money, but we're literally learning from scratch because, again, no financial education, we don't talk about money. For me, I didn't really have this money conversation with my parents. Even today, it's still a big taboo, talking about assets and money. What are your money maybe mindset? How do you feel about money, and maybe how did it change over time? Because I guess now you're really much into helping clients and stuff. So I guess you had to sort out your own money mindset. Maybe more mindset for you, maybe more mindset, money mindset for you, Urenna. But what's your story with money? If you want to share a few things.
Yeah, so mine's been an interesting one because my parents, we don't necessarily talk about money in that sense, in terms of talking about investments or any of that stuff. But from quite a young age, my parents have always kind of instilled the whole, if you want something, you have to work for it attitude. So from a very early age, I and my siblings have always, we'd had jobs. So from the age of 13. So my siblings and I, we all had we did paper rounds in the morning. So my parents were if you want those pair of shoes, or if you want to buy that video game, you're gonna have to earn that money. Exactly. So we started working from a really young age, babysitting, paper round, part-time jobs, etc. So that sort of taught us how to be independent in terms of we have our own income, and then we can manage that ourselves. So my parents, there's four daughters and one son. So again, it's my parents have taught my younger sister from a young age, how to be more independent and how to manage their own money. Some are better than others. One of my sisters is still very terrible with money, but in general, she's on her way. So I guess from a personal family that's kind of like how my money mindset sort of developed. And then obviously being thrown into the world of finance and having to deal with money on a very on a daily basis. And when I say money, I mean like a lot. Like I'll go to a client meeting and they'll give me a check for £2 million. I'm like, that is ridiculous. It was at that point I realized, nah, I need to be rich because this is crazy how much money there is out there.
And did that have an impact on like your self-worth and how you value yourself? So I also worked in banking for a lot of years, working on like huge deals and people getting paid a lot of money around me.
Yeah.
But I think that makes you think about, like how do you value yourself? The salary, the money you're getting.
Yeah.
So did that change your idea about money also?
It didn't really, I guess it didn't affect my self-worth in a way. It was more like it kind of motivated me to like want to make more money, just because I was like, this is absolutely crazy. But I think it definitely, obviously, the firm I worked for was again, because it's finance, it was very male dominated, and the whole talk around like salaries and bonuses is not really no one really likes to talk about stuff like that. But I realized that if I don't talk about it, then I'm not going to get what I want. So I tried to make sure that I was quite vocal with like my peers about like just trying to find out what people are on and stuff, just to make sure that there was some kind of equality there. So in that sense, yes, it did change my mindset about like, I guess, my self-worth in a way.
In a positive way.
Yeah, in a positive way, yeah.
And Holly, what's your view on like, self-worth and values and how can we, think that we're not just like a number on a piece of paper or salary or the money that we have on our bank account, but we're much more than that. But at the same time, we talked about money mindset, feeling good about money is not about being rich or having a lot of money. It's really what you do with this money. So, I mean, these feelings can be like contradictory. So how do you manage this?
Yeah, really good question. I think it's about what we value. At the end of the day, I think the first place to start is understanding what we value, what we care about, and how we get what we care about. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be a materialistic object. It can be time, it can be going out for a walk. It can be, these things are, if they're important to us, how do we achieve them? Now, there's a reality that money plays in here. I'm not, in this mode of being completely idealistic to think we can't do that. We absolutely need money. But what does it buy us, and the reasons why we need it are different for everybody. And I think it's important to look at, again, who we are and not what we have, who we are, not what we do, who we are, not what we own. All of these things are really confusing because the messaging is not that, right? The messaging is what we see. It's all appearances. It's what we see, what we consume, what we buy. And in that, people make judgments very quickly. Oh, you're carrying that bag. You must be this. You must be that. It can be very confusing and deceiving as well. So I think really being able to say, what is it that I want? What do I need? And how am I going to get it practically are things that are important.
I guess what's difficult today is, we spend a lot of time on social media, and that's a conversation we had the other day, talking about you have teenage kids, you have one daughter, and that's really hard. Especially for young people when they see like all these celebrities on Instagram, thinking, maybe they have a lot of money, maybe they don't have a lot of money. We don't have the full picture, but how you can ignore the noise and isolate yourself and think about your own decision, not be pulled towards all these crazy images and money dreams that you see everywhere.
Yeah, and it's so hard, right? We're all victim of it, whether we're 12 years old or 50 years old. There's this draw on social media, and a lot of it is not just what we see, but the option to buy, and to buy so quickly. Oh my God, all the advertisements now, right? You want this, boom, right away, you can have it. Amazon, right away. It's at my door.
I'm so frustrated when I can't get stuff delivered in 12 hours or 24 hours now.
Exactly. We're so conditioned now to just have things and have them right away. And that's a big piece. I think about that. I thought about this with talking about today, that no longer do we have that idea, even of cash, the tangibility of cash and having it. We don't even necessarily have anything to understand the value behind it. So my kids everything's an app. If they get money, cash, they hand it to me. Can you please put it in my account? I want to see what's there, right? And for me, having cash is, I know what I can spend. I know what I'm allowed now. And I can't go beyond that because that's my money mindset of what I was taught. They're not being taught the same thing. I mean, I need to go to a bank machine. I remember telling them that actually it's not just money coming out of this wall, right? There's we're working, we're putting that money inside, we're determining when we take it out, but not for them. It was like magic. So it's really important to have those conversations because we take all that for granted now, but they don't know. They're living in a really, really different time. And I'm married to a financial advisor who runs his own business, all on financial planning. So he and I have lots of interesting conversations about, how laden these things are with emotion, but also how important it is to strip back the emotion from finances too, right? How do we negotiate that is, I think, important.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's when we go into like more the practical side. So I've been reading like two good books, actually, one called Essentialism and the other one called Atomic Habits. So if you're into like more like self-discipline, self-development and stuff, they're really good. Especially Atomic Habits, they talk about, okay, you can't change your life in one day. You can't so for me it was more like you can't change your money mindset in one day, but what are the very small things you can do, like very small habits you can start building up, and it won't be painful, it will be easy, you will acquire these and they will become normal over time, such as meditating and stuff. So what are for you the very simple steps we can do to sort of shift slowly our money mindset? So maybe where do you start? Do you recognize like bad habits? What are the bad habits we have with money and how we can start building up like better habits? How do you do that for yourself, for your communities?
I guess for me, one of the things that kind of similar to what you said about how we live in like a digital world where you don't realize like money is actually like you actually have to work for money, like because every time you're just tapping, you don't actually realize like the money's actually coming out. So one thing that I'm very much aware of that in myself also. So one thing I started doing actually was what you said about like having cash. So like the beginning of the week I would like take like let's say like £50, and I'm like, this is the money I have for the week. If it finishes by Tuesday, then that's my problem. So
you eat rice and pasta.
Exactly. And that would be like my spending money for the entire week. So sometimes I either do that, so take cash out, or I have a separate Monzo card. So I transfer the money into my Monzo card, and then that's my spending money for the week. And I realized from doing that, I was able to manage my money way better than just using my normal Barclays bank account to like spend on everything. So that's a habit I developed last year, and it's been working quite well.
And was it painful to start this new habit?
Oh my god, yeah, it was so painful because first of all I have to determine how much to put, and because obviously I like to be realistic. I don't want to be like, oh, I'm only going to live off £20 this week when I know for a fact that's not going to happen. So first of all trying to decide how much, and then that temptation of maybe it's getting to Wednesday, Thursday, and the money's reduced significantly, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should transfer some more money, because obviously it's that easy. All you just have to do is tap a button and the money's instantly in your account. So sort of having that trying to get over that temptation was really, really hard. But it's one of those things, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. You have to keep building at it and keep what's the word? Yeah, just persevere for as long as you can. Another thing is, so with Kashmir, we have a WhatsApp group where we just talk about money, and if people have any tips or hacks or questions or problems, people talk about it. And recently, a girl was saying about how her attitude to shopping is very it's not great. So and she said that she likes to buy things not because she wants it, but it just makes her feel good about herself when she's feeling really down. And she recognized this. So sometimes she would come out of work and see a Zara and just walk in for no reason, just walk in and buy something. And then
it happens.
And she feels happy,
retail therapy.
Yeah, and she feels happy for a few minutes, and then it's and then so she recognized that. So she was sharing with us about that, and then we sort of gave her positive affirmations, and then she said over the past couple of weeks, she felt when she came out of work, she looked at Zara and then she walked the opposite direction. Amazing. So it's things like that, just little I guess when you also talk to people, it does help. Especially when you talk to people about what you're struggling with and stuff. So things like that do help. So I guess budgeting with your Monzo card and talking to your friends, positive affirmations.
Community, accountability.
Yeah, accountability is so key.
No, it does. Yeah, no, I think that really works. And I see in the Vestpod community, women tend to open up about like their stories about money, and then we see slightly less spending, a bit more saving. So I guess that really work. And you, Holly, what do you think about like impulse spending and how do we control our sort of I mean, I call them bad behaviors. I don't think that you're good or bad with money, but this is really annoying. I mean, it happened to me. I bought a very expensive pair of shoes, brought it back home, left it in the box for 2 weeks, and I was like, I need to bring it back, and I brought it back. But how do you control this feeling, like when you're like, okay, I need this thing, I really need it?
Yeah, such a good question, and I think all of us probably are victim of that at some point or another. There's, whether it's about controlling the feeling, I think initially it's, again, just being aware of it. Right? The fact that they sat in that box for 2 weeks and you were uncomfortable every time you looked at them, there was no joy in that. There was no enjoyment, right? There was no positive association with that purchase. So at the end of the day, maybe, you didn't need it, or it wasn't the right time, or you didn't have enough money. We don't know the reasons behind why we do a lot of these things, but if we can be aware of how we feel in the moment, that tells us something. Our bodies are super clever with telling us what's going on. We might not know exactly, but we know the feeling might not be good. Then that's about listening to it at that time, and then trying to understand why. I think a good way of handling that, if we don't know the answers, is this idea of delaying the gratification, right? Because there's that need. She was coming out, Zara, there it is. I'm not feeling particularly good. I want to feel better. Boom, I'm going to buy something. I'm going to eat something. I'm going to engage in something that I know might not be good for me, but because I don't feel good right now, I'm acting on it. If we can take that impulse and just quell it for a little bit and delay the gratification, we can then understand a little bit and sometimes even say, you know what, I don't want it. I'm okay, I'm over that feeling. I can pause. Anyone know about I'm sure you do, if you've heard about the marshmallow experiment with kids in the classroom. So that actually so for those of you who don't, children were given a marshmallow and they were told by the experimenter that you can have this marshmallow when I leave the room, you can eat it now, but if you wait till I get back, I'll give you another marshmallow. And what they found was that the children who were able to wait for that marshmallow, because they wanted two, and they followed those kids for a long time, and they were able to see the benefits of being able to hold off on that for a little bit showed up in the way they worked, in their friendships, and all these kinds of areas afterwards, because they were able to delay it just a little bit. And that gave them a lot of control and a lot of power, and they found that they had self-control. And I think it's about exerting some of that self-control and not judging it around, a bad spend or whatever it was, but being able to say, I bought it, there was a reason why, let me be curious and interested about why. Does that answer some of that delayed gratification?
I think it's just really hard when you're in the moment.
It's so hard.
You had like a really bad meeting, whatever it is,
hard.
You walk past Zara, it's the sale.
It's a quick fix.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay. So the good thing is you can bring it back, but we take like so many of these decisions a day. You can start in the morning, like do I have I go to Pret, I'm gonna have a croissant and this and that. So you can end up like spending a lot of money. You can feel bad about it. So I guess you learn from it. But for me, the first reaction, was like, I'm bad with money. That's so bad. I'm spending too much money.
Yeah.
So then it's sort of a negative conversation with yourself, and it's not really helping. So how do you actually come out of this negative conversation? Try to change the conversation with yourself, make it more positive. Positive affirmation. So what are the things you can tell yourself, or like some techniques that you have, where you can get out of this zone?
Yeah, and I guess right away, just being able to say, okay, just stop, really being able to try to say, you know what, I don't feel great right now. It's okay. It's okay that I don't feel well. It's going to pass. I can do something else in the meantime. I can try to replace that negative thinking with taking a few seconds and just taking a breath, walking outside, calling a friend, doing a few things that actually will counteract that negative feeling that you're having at that time, to do something more positive, and to really, at the end of the day, as women, we tend to be really hard on ourselves. So if we mess up, if we buy that thing that we didn't want to, if we say the thing that we didn't mean to try to have a little bit of compassion towards ourselves around that. I know it's so much easier to say than do, but it's really important to just give ourselves a break when we do mess up with those things. It's probably a really good place to start.
I think I was reading one rule that was like, okay, when something costs more than like £10, take 10 minutes to think about it. £100, 100 minutes, and I think it's quite good. So
good.
Just leave stuff on your basket. And usually, I mean, I go back to my like net-a-porter basket, and I'm like, all these things, and I'm like, what? What is that? So I think maybe leave a bit of time to make these purchases can be quite good.
That's it.
I just wanted to talk about positive affirmations, because that's quite a big thing in the US, in all these money books and coaching books that I love. They're like, you're the best. And so does it work? Like, should we do it? I know we're a bit more skeptical in Europe. Are you American? Well, Canadian. Canadian. But does this work? Should we do that? Like, should we be a bit kinder to ourselves? Should we motivate ourselves? Can we have like big messages on our desks?
Definitely.
Does these messages work?
It does. It being, again, back to being more compassionate towards ourselves and noticing when we're not feeling good. Again, noticing it and stopping and just saying, hang on a second, I have a very bad, feeling in my stomach. What's going on here? Taking the time to actually ask ourselves what's really bugging us. Maybe our boss gave us a bad review. Maybe, we forgot a friend's birthday. I mean, there's so many reasons why we can beat ourselves up. We need to try not to do that. So positive affirmations are a great way to counteract that. Big sticky notes, yes. You're doing
photos.
That you did great. You spent less than you did last week. That's fantastic. Being able to notice these things and pay attention to them, I think, really are helpful. In whatever ways, it might sound cheesy and quirky, but there is definite research that shows that the more positively we can talk about ourselves, we can be our own best friend in it. As terrible as that might sound, it really does help.
Yeah. And it's also maybe rewarding yourself. So even in like monetary terms, so you decide, okay, I'm not going to spend on this Zara dress, whatever, this £50. So straight away you decide you're not going to spend the money, and you transfer this money into like a saving account or into your, pension or whatever, but you do it on the spot. So then you feel really good because the money has gone somewhere, it's attributed to your goal, and then it's not on your account maybe to spend anymore. So it's not, you don't see it as a sacrifice or like as, you're not missing out on something, because actually the money will go somewhere else towards a goal that's going to be like a travel or trip or retirement or like, whatever you have in your plan.
And again, I think it's about making it tangible, right? Even if you're saving and you put money, I mean, my husband used to talk about this a lot with his clients. You take money and you put it into a drawer, and at the end of the week, even if it's £5 every day, it doesn't matter the amount, it's the physical act of doing it and having the proof. And every time you open that drawer or you put it into an envelope and you see that your money is actually growing, there's a real sense of satisfaction from being able to see what you're doing is growing, even if it's a small amount. It's it's a real practical thing that we can do that shows up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have the opportunity to go out, I just go away and do that, and then I'm really happy with the amount I've got. I just take it out.
So yeah, the question is
It's like the double-edged sword. It's like, oh, I'm doing so well, like now I deserve to treat myself.
Yeah.
All the money I've saved. And then it's
Okay.
just like, God.
So the question is, okay, I do this, so I start saving, I put my money somewhere in a box, and then someday I just take it and spend it on something else. So
I would say that could you not take a portion of that and put it, and actually do treat yourself for the fact that you managed to save all of it, but that you take the majority of that, let's say 75% of it, and keep it in that drawer, but you take away a bit, and that is your reward for saving. That's what I would do.
And maybe you put it in a place where you can't take it, actually.
Yeah.
So I think one of the girls was saying, I put it on the saving account, but it's actually an account where I don't have a credit card, and the only way for me to take the money out is to go to the bank with my passport, to queue, and ask for the money. And she's like, I can't be bothered, so I just don't do it, and I leave the money. But yeah, or maybe if you put it into a pension, to be honest, you can't take the money out. Lifetime as you can't take the money out. So unless you pay penalties, and we hate paying like anything, so it's maybe a good way to save. But again, you don't need to put the whole thing. Maybe you put a portion of it, 50% every month goes into that, and that's maybe a good way to save. And you say also saving for like short-term goals, maybe. So Urenna, I'm quite interested in Kashmir, the app you launched. I think you're going to crowdfund also in a few weeks.
Technically it's live now, but it's live. It's live privately.
So we'll send you the details.
Yeah.
But can you tell us about like the behavior you're encouraging on the platform and maybe the story? So because I really like the story of how you came up with the idea of Kashmir.
Yeah, sure. So basically, for anyone who hasn't heard of Kashmir, it's a savings app that empowers women to be better with their money so that they can afford the lifestyle that they want. So it's really like goals focused. Right now, we're starting off with women who like luxury fashion. So helping them micro save towards buying that luxury item they really want, but without them having to go into debt or feeling guilty about it and so on. And then we also run money management workshops for women to help them be better with their money. So covering stuff around like saving, budgeting, pensions, ISAs, all of that stuff. So in terms of, I guess, the story behind it, it was quite a funny one. Basically, I was in Harrods with my friends and I saw a pair of shoes, a pair of Christian Louboutins. I was like, oh my God, I really need them. Exactly. And then I tried it on and it was perfect. And then I looked at the price and I was like, maybe not. And the shoes are about £600.
Yeah.
And even though I had the money, like I had money in my savings, in my bank account, I just felt guilty impulsively spending £600 on a pair of shoes that I hadn't like budgeted for or anything. And at that point I was like, trying to be really good with my money. I was trying to like save for a deposit for a house. So every penny like counted. So I ended up not buying those shoes. And then later on that evening I was thinking that if I had like a special piggy bank, so some money I was just putting away and then towards treating myself in the future, then I wouldn't have felt that guilt. So that was kind of, it was really, really random. And then that was kind of how the idea for Kashmir was born. And in terms of like the habits that it's sort of forming for people. So at the moment, it's how it works is a user signs up, they set how much, let's say there's an item they really want, they set how much they want to save each month, let's say like £50 every month. It goes into their Kashmir wallet, and then once they saved up enough money for the item, then they buy it on Kashmir, and it's sort of like very separate to their normal day-to-day banking, because one of the problems that people were having was because of how easily accessible your savings was. Just like you said, it's so easy to just dip into it and spend it on something else. So like we had people who before they tried to save for an item, but then they just spent it on like something else. So so it's kind of like a good way to just completely separate it. So I had there was one of our users recently, she just found, like, she realized that she had saved up about just over £1,000 on her Kashmir wallet, and it's sort of money that was completely separate to her normal banking. So she was like, okay, now I can treat myself. And she bought like some shoes and the bag for her daughter. So it's like, it makes people feel you're less likely to feel guilty because you've actually worked towards saving that and buying that item. And again, like you said about delayed gratification, it's not an impulsive purchase. We've had like younger users, so our users go down to the age of like 16, and we had one where she prior to using Kashmir, she like all her luxury purchases were all from her parents. Like she had the Chanel bag, and I'm like, what, at 16? That's crazy.
Oh yeah,
but,
social media.
but so obviously, at the moment she doesn't have like a part-time job, but all her money is like through pocket money that she gets from her parents, and then she puts some of that into her Kashmir wallet, and then she saves it, and then she buys something for herself. And I was speaking to her, like trying to understand like her, like how she feels about everything, and she's like, she really likes the fact that she feels like she's worked for the bag, and rather than her parents, like she deserves that, she's treating herself rather than like her parents she's like, oh dad, I want this bag, and then they just buy it for her. So it's like trying to teach them like good habits like really early on. And then what that also does is that because we're sort of helping people to develop like good saving habits, then they then go on to start saving towards, more, I guess, responsible things. So like a property so we've had situations where through our workshops that we run, like we had a property workshop, we had a few users who then started making active contributions towards saving for a property deposit and things like that. So our whole thing is not just about like, hey, save money towards buying a Chanel bag. It's also about like, here's how, okay, we know you like these things, let's teach you good habits so you can have that Chanel bag, but then you can also save for a property or retirement or like the more responsible thing. So yeah, that's a general gist.
Yeah, no, I love it because it's really like changing your behavior. So you start with something fun, then you get into the habit of spending, and once you've acquired this habit, then you know how to do it. You know you'll feel good about it. I mean, this is like delayed gratification, basically, and then you can move on to your other goals. So I guess starting with like girls in like 16, it's amazing actually because they spend a few years on Kashmir, maybe building luxury goods, and then they move on to like pensions and ISA and stuff like that as soon as they earn money. But that's really cool. So how many can you give us like a few numbers? How many users, or maybe what are your next goals with Kashmir, or what are you building up on the platform?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, we're still like really early. So we've got just under 1,000 users, and they're saving roughly around like £50 to £100 in their wallet each month. So right now we've just been focusing on improving the product and making sure like it's a much better experience, because you know how tech is. It's always an interesting one. Yeah, it's always a hassle. So we've got that, and then we're right now we're crowdfunding to help us make it like hire more people and like really improve the product and marketing and all of that stuff. So right now it's this year is going to be a very interesting year. We've got loads of interesting things planned, and we want to like work with a lot more like female-focused communities, and really sort of like our whole thing is we just really want to help women like with money, because it's so important. We make up 50% of the population, so it's important that we're also very, very financially literate, especially considering I was reading some like articles that women are actually the big spenders in the house. They're the ones who actually spend the money in the household. So if we're the ones spending, then we should also be the ones making the money. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and I just wanted to finish with more like generally how can we talk more about money or plan more around our own finances. So maybe, Holli, can you talk to us about how to best like start talking about money? Who should we talk about money with or to? What are the initial steps, and why do you think money has been a taboo, and why can talking about money help us manage our money better?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that sort of jumps out at me with that is really trying to get to the core of value of money. So what it is, what does money represent? Again, back to us. What's the core of it? And being able to start as young as possible. If you're parents, if teaching, if you're aunts, if you're teachers, even amongst friends and colleagues, how to be able to start thinking about what the value is of the money. Not the money just itself, and yes, we know money gets to buy us things, but how important is that purchase? Where is the value? And it starts like when I think about the conversations in schools or with kids, being able to, if you go out somewhere and you purchase something, being able to get people to think about what the purchase is first. And little tricks, almost teaching people how to look into things. I'm thinking about detergents, or going into supermarkets and understanding when you're buying something, instead of just buying the first thing off the shelf, saying, oh wait, this is this price and that's that, this one has more, is this a better price? Like just taking the time to actually interact with money, I think is important, as opposed to pushing it away.
And do you talk about money with your children, for example, or your partner?
We always have. I think money has been something that we've all spent time talking about, because just for these reasons, because we want to. It's complicated and it's hard, but we want them to be able to understand that it's not just a click of not just a tap, and that it takes a lot to be able to make that money and to earn that, and to get them to be working and doing jobs around the house and chores and things like that, so that they understand what the association is and what the fascination is actually with the money. Because we all are fascinated by money. We believe that to acquire more of it is better. But that's, it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes, as you said, you can have very, very wealthy people who are very unhappy. Yeah. So I think making those kinds of connections, it doesn't buy us happiness. It buys us levels of freedom for sure, but not necessarily happiness.
Yeah. And I think you learn that by experience. So I guess in your 20s, it's really hard to learn about these things and the value of money, and that money doesn't bring you happiness, and it's maybe more like social experiments. But so do you need to like make these experiences, make mistakes with money in order to learn? Because I guess only talking about it, you just learn part of it.
Yeah.
But how do you sort of fail with money and learn with money?
Yeah.
You have a few examples of some of your clients, maybe?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a client in mind who was just like your clients. She happened to be a very wealthy client. The messaging, her money mindset, the messaging that her parents gave was, you never have to worry about money. You will be taken care of, which is, again, very unique position perhaps for her to be in. And don't worry yourself, we're here and you'll have that money. So she didn't. She didn't worry about it. She didn't think about it until she had to, until the family had a catastrophe and they lost all their money, and she was in her 20s with nothing, with no understanding about how to do things differently, because things were done for her. And actually, a lot of our work together was about empowering her around learning how to get over that discomfort around money, that fear. It wasn't just discomfort. She was petrified. How am I going to do this? I've never been taught. I don't know how to do this. I'm going to fail all over the place. And actually, it was about her beginning to fail with money, beginning to learn that it's okay to make some poor purchases, and it's okay to do that. You have to really understand and get comfortable with building herself back up as a person, as an individual, to understand what her worth was. Because as far as she was concerned, she fell underneath the family name and the family's funding, and when that was gone, she actually felt a real sense of identity loss. Who am I now? So it was about building that up for her, and it was a really important process, and she came out of it really feeling, again, with time, really being able to feel that I can do that. And through communities like these, I think you're doing such an incredible job in being able to provide a space where people can actually talk about these things in a way where they're not feeling ashamed too.
And I think a few more examples are around like being in a bad relationship where maybe the woman doesn't have enough money, the man has a lot of money, and women, we tend to stay in the relationship because they think, I won't have enough money to live and stuff. But actually, when you see these relationships ending and the women sort of, like starting her own journey, she realizes that, I can make money. I can, negotiate my salary and stuff, and I can be financially independent. So I think it's, having a few of these in your life, and that helps you like step up also, maybe.
And there's that connection between self-worth and actual financial worth, right? And how they're really very different, but how we actually put them pretty closely. We link them together, but they don't have to be. You are not what you have, you are not what you wear, you are not any of those things. They're part of it, but it's not all of who you are as a person.
Yeah. And Urenna, maybe to finish up, in your experience, so you moved from a high-paid job in the financial industry, and you became a startup founder, a bit like me. So that's like quite a big adjustment on your lifestyle, I guess. So how did you manage that?
So yeah, it was hard. it was hard, but I luckily because I was living with my parents, so that definitely helped a lot. Because I moved. I had my flat, so I moved back home to help with my expenses. But in terms of, I guess, having to give my job up it wasn't actually a difficult decision for me to make, because I was at a point where I felt like, yes, I'm making a lot more money now compared to if I'm a startup founder, but I really cared about what I was building, and I was willing to make that sacrifice. And also because I guess I was in a much more privileged position in terms of like, I could live with my parents and not have to like pay rent or any of that stuff. So that definitely helped a lot. I feel like if I had other like obligations, like if I had like, I don't know, like a mortgage or children or things like that, then the conversation would be a lot differently. So because I just felt I'm young. At that time I was 25. So I was like, I might as well just do it now. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it in the future. So let me just do it now, and then make the sacrifices now, and then hopefully it will pay off in the future. But yes, I definitely had to make like lifestyle changes. I had to like cut out holidays in terms of like actually traveling out. Like I take time off, but holidays I had to cut that out because I'm like, this is an expense that is not needed right now, so I'm just gonna all that extra money I was making, I had to like invest it back into my business, things like that. What else I have to do? So just even little things like taking packed lunches in rather than buying lunch out, because you know how lunch is very expensive in London. Like you can easily spend £10, £50 on lunch. I don't know how it happens, but it does. So I had to like make like a lot of like lifestyle changes just to make sure that I was still happy, not like I was making significant sacrifices to the point I was miserable, but also making sure that I had enough money to like live off for the rest of the month and stuff, especially when you're a startup founder. Like everything is all just, nothing's ever straightforward. Like you never know what's going to happen next month and the month after, so you have to have like a lot of buffers in place for like just in case situations. And also because when I left my job in 2018, and at that point I hadn't raised any investment, so all the money I had was literally what was in my savings account. So I spent like a year saving up money because I knew I was going to leave. Spent a year saving up money, so I had like money to live off for like 9 months, with no income. But you know how it is. Once you leave your job, all of a sudden, all the expenses that you never thought would happen just came. Like my laptop broke and all these crazy things. I was like, oh God, this is not what I need. But I think definitely I planned ahead. It wasn't just like a impulse decision. So when I left my job, I sort of gave myself a goal of, okay, I have 9 months of personal runway, but things happen, so I need to raise investment like ASAP. So I told myself, I left my job in mid-June, and I told my friend the Monday after I left my job, okay, I'm going to raise investment by 31st of October. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know, but it's going to happen. And I end up raising it 24th of October.
Oh,
so
amazing.
It was one week before my deadline. But it was crazy. But again, sort of having that goal that I had, like I need to raise investment at this date. So that was what kind of pushed me to keep going. I mean, other than the fact that I kept seeing my bank balance reduce quite quickly, was also another push. But I think sometimes when you're under pressure, it does motivate you to do stuff. Like, obviously, like at that time, like I was under significant pressure. Like I needed to raise money, I needed to build my product, I need to hire people and all that. And I also needed to live. Like, my life wasn't just about my job, it was also about my personal life too. So it did put a lot of pressure, like mentally. But I've sort of learned over the past few years how to channel that pressure, that energy into like making impact and making sure that I'm hitting my goals. It's not easy at all, because sometimes you're gonna feel like crap, because you're like, especially if things are not going according to plan, you definitely feel like crap, but still managing to just have that grit and resilience that keep going. Something I've learned how to do. Well, I'm still learning, but we're getting there.
That resonates. Thanks for sharing that. Maybe you have one last word for our community. Maybe it can be a tip, maybe something that you want to change for yourself, or like a big goal you have. If you want to share like one thing with us, just to wrap up.
I think for me, a goal I've set myself for 2020, it's money related, but it's not really related to me. It's more about so obviously I'm in a startup board and stuff. A big goal I've made is I want to make one angel investment this year. I don't know what or where or who but that's one thing I want to do. I don't, even if it's a little amount, but just something, because I think it's when I think about the people who have invested in me and who backed me at the really early stages, I've seen how that has really helped a lot, and I really want to try and help people who are starting out in terms of starting new businesses, and they just need that extra bit of capital, whatever I can afford to give at that point. That's definitely something a goal I've set myself for this year. So hopefully I can
Thank
hit
you.
that.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And you, Holly?
I would definitely say save for a rainy day. I would definitely say that, even if it's a tiny amount, just the very act of doing it, I think, is really empowering. And then I would say find value in things that don't cost anything. So anything, go for a walk with a friend or hang out with your dog or whatever it is, things that make you feel happy.
Yeah. Great, thank you so much. And maybe Any resources you have that you want to share with us, so that you could share now, or otherwise, very happy to send it after. We'll send your crowdfunding campaign. Anything else? Books, podcast, websites.
I think for anyone who's sort of thinking about like investing in like stocks and shares. I mean, I mentioned Moneybox earlier. I think it's a really good app, especially if you have zero knowledge or experience, and you can start investing from like £1. So you can it's good because one thing people always say is that like, oh, I haven't got I need a lot of money to invest, but actually you don't. You can just start with whatever you have, and then you can keep adding more as you go along and as you start to learn. So I definitely think check out Moneybox, or there's also Wealth Simple, which is it's a Canadian savings app, but they recently launched in London like a couple of years ago. It's pretty good, and also I can send what's it called? We have like a partnership with them at Kashmir, so you get the first £10,000 of your investments are fee-free, and you also get a free financial advisor. So I can send over the link through Emilie, but definitely check it out.
We can send you a list of investment platforms and robo-advisors, so then you can do your own research and look at who are the players on the market, maybe.
Yeah.
And Holly?
Yeah. I would say, well, definitely listen to Emilie and my podcast that we talked about. Where we talk about money and body image. And I would say...
it's called Tough Love.
Yeah, called Tough Love on Just Breathe, which is a mindfulness community, actually, which is really plugs you into awareness, which is what we're really talking about, just becoming more aware about all these different things. And someone like Brene Brown, who, I see lots of nodding, she's amazing. Doesn't speak specifically on finances at all, but is just somebody who is very wise and has a lot of insight into human behavior.
Dare to Lead, maybe?
Dare to Live, talks all about perfectionism and shame, and money is an area where we talk taboo, we talk about shame, what are our money stories and things, so it's really insightful. Barry Tesler, have you ever heard of her? She's at Colorado, and she does some of these money courses where she addresses things on a more emotional level that I found pretty interesting too.
Great, and we'll send you that. I'll send you a
Henry. Do you know the Go Henry? Does everybody know
Henry.
Go Henry app?
Yeah.
No, I think it's more for teens.
For teens and
right?
kids.
Go Henry, very good. Monzo as well, you mentioned. So all of those.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll send everything, and I'll send these 2 books on habits, which are really good. Essentialism is a really, really good book. Thank you so much, Urenna, Holli, and I hope to see you soon at a Vestpod event. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.